Grace, how are you?
Singing those Afro beats.
In it.
Let me,
How are you this evening?
I'm all right, just going to add some people. Really, really knackered, to tell you the truth. And I suppose if anyone is looking at me, they can tell. Just shattered. I'm just going to add some people.
Okay. I'll do the same. Put my glasses on, excuse me. So if you're on Insta Live and you need something to do, you want to talk, join us on the Too Real Insta Live show. Call in, have your say. We'll put the number up every minutes or so. So yeah, join in. We'll, in the next couple of minutes, we'll tell you what the show's about. But it is a hot topic and another one that was discussed with us. So yeah. I think everyone might be Instagrammed out. Instagram Live. There's so many Insta Live shows on at the moment. Have you watched any of them?
Is there?
So many.
Yeah.
So many. In the last few days, I've seen like 3 new ones.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So many. So I'll wait for a few more people to join. Maybe everyone's feeling the pinch. Maybe everyone's feeling a bit tired today. Might be something in the air.
I'm so exhausted. It's just even funny. I'm just so exhausted. Extremely exhausted. You can see my eyes. My eyes are all red. I can't even keep my eyes open. It's that bad.
No, you do look quite tired. But that's what happens when you're doing liberation work. That's what happens when you're doing work for the people. Do you know what I mean? You never stop. It's 24 hours.
24.
I don't think people...
Yeah, like a friend sick, so I had to rush down to take her some stuff.
When was that?
Last night. So I'm just shattered still.
You said your friend wasn't well.
Sorry?
You said your friend wasn't well. Listen, that was nice of you.
It's just what anyone would do, isn't it? A friend in need is a friend indeed. If you can't,
that's how it should be, but not everybody would do that.
Yeah,
that's the world that we live in. I'm afraid not everyone would do that.
It won't be classified as a friend to me then.
Yeah, I guess. So where's everybody at this evening? What's everybody doing?
I don't know. It must be on other lives or something. I don't even know.
It must be on a lockdown. The other sense of the word. The other sense of the word.
Exactly. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Hay fever's killing me. Every time I go inside,
hay fever's not killing you. Hay fever's bothering you.
Yeah.
Careful about the word you use.
I feel like it's killing me. Every time I go out in that garden, it's like...
Oh, you was out in your garden today?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, anyway, for the sake of the topic this evening, we're discussing why African people of African heritage don't want to consider themselves African or don't want to call themselves African. So we wanted to discuss that debate and just get people's thoughts and views about it. Do you know what I mean? And why? I mean, how do you prefer to call yourself? And how? And why? What is your reason for it? So why do you want to call yourself like either black or African, or why wouldn't you call yourself African, and what's your reason for it? So that's the topic of the debate this evening. So while it's just me and you, and is it like I can't see? Keep putting my glasses on.
Lioness.
Who?
It's Lioness Lee or Lioness Leia 3. I don't know how the LEA's pronounced. How they?
Okay, so we'll say lioness if that's okay. So myself, you, and lioness on, and sometimes it says one, but sometimes there's a lot more people watching, so you just never know. But yeah, so just for the sake of us, like, do you have any thoughts on it, Kemet?
I have so many thoughts on it, so
Hmm.
much. Um,
We'll just break down at least one anyway, for the time being.
I don't even know where to start, so it's better you start because I don't even know where to
Okay. Okay. So my thing is,
start. I'll just
I think it, I think it's deep rooted. I think it comes back from the days where Black African people were enslaved. Yeah, and I think that as people of African heritage, when we see things on media, on TV, in publications about our history, it's not been real. And a lot of the things that we've been shown, I'll speak for myself. When I was growing up as a young girl, I never really saw much positive things. I actually didn't see anything quite positive apart from seeing my family as a black young lady. Do you know what I mean? What I saw was people like Diana Ross, or Eartha Kitt or Aretha Franklin. It would always have to be somebody like that that was in the public eye as a celebrity, as a singer, that was doing anything that I could actually aspire to or look up to. But in terms of understanding my African history and about myself, all I knew was roots. That's the truth. And then when they decided to put on a few comedy shows like No Problem on TV, but um, I never knew anything about my African history. There was always something inside of me that was calling on it, but I had no one around me to like give me that information. So a lot of it I had to seek for myself. So the point that I'm making, not to ramble on, but the point that I'm making is I believe that a lot of us have seen really negative things about Africa. We've been told that we're savages. We've been told, when you think about the stories that they infiltrate us with, it's always things like we were savages, or we sold each other out, or we didn't fight, when it's so untrue. When you do your research and you start to learn about who we are as African people, actually it's a completely different story. And when you start to learn that as a young person, then you start to see who you are as yourself, and you start to understand where you're coming from, and you start to feel a sense of empowerment. And I think that's what's missing, and I think that's why a lot of people, especially a lot of Caribbean people and African Americans, that's why they want to be called African Americans, and they won't use the term just African. People want to stay away from it because they feel like calling themselves African is quite dirty. They don't want to be associated with it. So I think that's one of my reasons. Well, quite a few actually. Yeah.
yeah, and I think it's valid what you're saying because the way the media portrays Africa to be has and had always portrayed it to be is very, very negative, extremely negative. It's never, you never see the $1 billion houses and the £1 billion,
Absolutely.
and them living the life with what people classify as a life where most people had their paid maids where they'll pay them, and their cooks, their cleaners, their drivers,
Mm.
everything like that, and the beautiful beaches and everybody in unity. They'll never show that. And even if you go into the villages, the sense of, even if it's a traditional mud hut, the cleanliness,
Mm.
the warmth, the whole comfort of the whole thing, and being at one with nature, they're never going to show you that side. And I think there's more than one reason. You're right for that reason. So it's always been portrayed in a derogatory way. So we never ever want to be associated with Africa because it's like, oh, you swing from trees and it all monkeys. You live with the monkeys in the trees. And if we did, so what? Which we didn't. But so what's wrong with living with nature?
With nature and with animals. Actually, we walked with animals.
With monkeys and cave people. So what's the difference? You understand? So it's more that a case of that without knowing self, and also on a more deep rooted historical fact around it, I would say, because when we was on the plantation, Africa got beaten out of us. So even if our parents would say to us and our grandparents, we might say, oh, what was Africa like? So the ones that was really frightened and wanted the generations to live on so they can tell the tale of the abuse, because they always believe they will be free, they will take their freedom, will say, don't associate with Africa. And then people still would want to know. So they'd always say, well, Africa's bad and Africa's this and that, just for survival, just so that their children won't say, well, I'm an African, and get their ass killed. Do you know what I mean? So
it makes sense.
That's a part of it that's never spoken about. Survival of not being able to identify with Africa just solely for your protection, so that you weren't beaten and killed. Because even if you remember in Roots, you weren't even allowed to keep your African name. Kunta getting beaten, they weren't allowed to talk about Africa, because they'd be like, Africa's my home, not here, not here. Do you know what I mean? It's get beaten. So generations going down, the fear of your child getting beaten and stripped or getting killed for it, they were practically made to forget about Africa just for a mother to protect her child and her children.
I've got a question for you. If you finish off, and then I'll pose my question to you.
Say on that part.
Okay, so obviously you're an African historian, is that correct?
Yeah.
Am I right to be right in saying that? You know.
I'm a historian because I studied world history, but my specialist is Black history.
Right. So with that said, you know, I've read some stuff, and I don't have any sources right now to quote. However, I do recall at a point reading something about, and I can't remember if it was portrayed in Roots, but I do recall reading something about when African people were taken from Africa and brought to the plantations, right? That they often, not even prayed, but they often really thought that they're African, because remember, these people are kingly, they're strong, do you know what I mean? They're powerful people. So they often thought that their African brothers and sisters, mums and dads and auntie, would come and rescue them. Do you know what I mean? So I remember reading that. So I wanted to know, like, what is your take on that? And, you know, I can't remember where the source came from. So I'm just asking you.
No, I don't think, I've never read or heard of that, but it wouldn't be far from the truth, because if you've got snatched now from somewhere, you're going to believe that somebody is going to be fighting or trying to find your rescue. So I think human nature. So I would that
go ahead.
Because that would just be human nature as far as I'm concerned. You know what I mean? So that will keep, you're not going to think, well, Kemet ain't going to try and find me, or Shamara's not going to try and find me. Straight away be like, oh, my mom's missing. Everybody's going to be like, looking, well, where could she be? That would be standard. So, and you would be thinking, well, I'm sure somebody's going to get me, because they must realise that I'm missing by now. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I don't think that is anything that would be untrue. I do believe that would be something that that will be standard in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
when I have this this discussion with my African brothers and sisters, like from the Caribbean, and they're so, I mean, yeah, we're all proud of where we come from and where we were born and our countries and everything. But when it gets to the point where they are saying, no, I'm Jamaican, I'm not African, I don't know anything about Africa, I'm Jamaican. For me, it's like, why would you, even over here, no, I'm Black British, but if you really think about it, right, down to the very core, do you know how strong your great-great-great-great-grandmother and father had to be for you to even be here? Like, that's how deep it is, that you would not even want to associate yourself with the name being African. Why would you just want to call yourself Black, when really you have to understand, even as a Caribbean, your great forefathers were the strongest of all Africans for us to actually be here. Do you understand what I'm saying? And I often have this argument. I said, don't take that lightly, because in your DNA is a warrior. In your DNA, there are two warriors: your great, 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 great grandfather and your great, 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 great grandmother. Do you know what I mean? And I think people need to like think about that, because you would never want to disown that. You would never just want to like define yourself as a skin color. You know, when if an Italian person goes somewhere and
Me,
someone says, "Where are you from?" They're not going to say, "I'm Italian British." Do you know what I mean? They're just going to go, "I'm Italian."
yeah. But for me, the jewelry still. Obviously, I'm gonna always say that I'm African. I remember we was in Philadelphia. Palsis was in Philadelphia with Dr. Umar Johnson.
Mm.
No, I lie. It wasn't there. We was somewhere. We was in Bristol.
Mm.
You might have been there.
I think I was there. I was there at Bristol at the Malcolm X Centre.
Yeah. So
Yeah, that was a very good day.
After when we was talking and everything, and a girl came up to me and was like, asked me if I was mixed with something. I don't know what she talked about. So I said no. So she was like, we just had the whole lecture and all that and talking about Africanism and all that. So I said no. And then anyway, so she goes, was your mum and dad born? I said, I'm African. She said, were they born in Africa? I said no. I said to her, where my mum was born in the Caribbean, and I said where my dad was born in the Caribbean, and she was like,
Talking.
this is like one of the small islands, because you're small island because you're she was Jamaican, so she goes, oh, I'm Jamaican. No, she said, well, you're one of the small island people. So I said to her, oh, you're saying that because straight away you're Jamaican. So she said, yeah, I'm Jamaican. You are one of the small island people. So I said, well, I'm not. I said, I'm actually a lot larger because I'm an African. I'd never give up a continent for a country. And then
there you go.
Then started to clap. And he's like, spot on, Clement, spot on. And I was like...
And tell people who that quote is from if they don't know, Clement. Educate them. Who's that quote from?
And then Umar Johnson said to me, you know that Marcus Garvey said the same thing? And I never knew in all the work, even if you come into my library of books, what I've got here in my collection, you see many books of Marcus Garvey, and you can read through any one of them. I've never come across that quote from Marcus Garvey. Never. Up to today, even when I went to Marcus Garvey lectures, I've never come across Marcus Garvey saying, but Umar Johnson turned around and said that's what Marcus Garvey said, and I get to find that. But to me,
I've read it somewhere. I don't know if it came up on a post or something, but I think it was one of the memes where you see a picture and then it says it. I've seen it somewhere.
I've never seen it. I've never heard it to this day. But what that did for me from that day on is sealed it for me that I'm a true Pan-Africanist, because I didn't have to know that came from anyone, to just use common sense. Never gonna give up a continent for an country or any island. Africa, over 50 countries in it. So why would I give up a continent for any kind of island? I'd have to be, or any kind of country. I'd have to be out of my mind to do that. You understand? So she felt a bit embarrassed and went on with that. But she felt a bit embarrassed. So when Umar started to clap, so I just want to acknowledge some people. Salim, hey. Warrior Queen, hey, Warrior Queen. Warrior Queen says white people don't call themselves white, they refer to their country of origin. Steven Lorenzo joined, hey, Steph. Warrior Queen says not that we need to compare ourselves, but just saying, and you're right. Warrior Queen says if a cat is born in a kennel, she wouldn't give birth to a puppy. Officially Flexitarians joined, hey, Pam, hey, Claudette, whichever one is on there. And Miss W, hey. But I grew up, I was quite lucky, because where a lot of people and a lot of my peers didn't grow up with what I would say Pan-Africanist parents or pro-black parents. They didn't grow up with that. I did. So when I used to talk about where I come from, whatever, obviously my mum and dad would say, but they would always say you're African. And my dad always say, but if a horse is born, I said, how am I African when I'm not? I know my heritage is that, but when you guys weren't born there, my dad always says to me, if a horse is similar to what Warrior Queen is saying, if a horse is born, if a dog is born in a stable, it doesn't make it a horse. That
exactly
that terminology what is used. If a dog is born in a stable, it doesn't make it a horse. So it's I think we need to really be proud and change the whole narrative. I think it's changing now, the whole narrative.
Definitely is.
Being African, because when going to school, and I was lucky that I had very, very wise parents, and I couldn't come home from school and not doing my homework or not saying what you learned today. I even do that to my children. What did you learn at school today? You can't tell me nothing. I always ask you that, you know. So I had very smart, wise parents in the sense that when we were studying ancient to them Egypt, which we know is ancient Kemet or Kemet, they would say, parents would say we was always taught that when you're studying Africa or a map of Africa, when you're doing geography, find parts of the world, name one African country, and I'll put down Egypt. I always was told Africa is not, Egypt's not in Africa. And my parents said, what's chopping this when Egypt is Northeast Africa? And then you look on the map, it's like, it is Northeast Africa. These teachers were kind of like, you know, really kind of just off with it, because they had a duty to do. And that was to keep the narrative from their perspective, from that white superiority perspective. And I became a teacher to change that in school. So when part of the curriculum you have to teach about Egypt, the first thing, and anybody that's been in my classes, some of you may be online, big women now and big men now, you.
No one would believe you.
We had to learn, especially in year 4, one of the topic was, and I always used to change the curriculum because I was always a senior member of staff and always responsible for history and English, especially history, so that I could put in the black input in there. So every time I wrote the schemes of work for the Egyptian topic, I'd always have to put the original name for Egypt, Kemet. The white teachers even had to teach this. It's in Northeast Africa. Certain things they would have to teach, and when part of the test, end of year test, with their children would have to answer all those questions. From that, I would know whether the teacher taught it or not, and they had to teach it and change the whole narrative. The jet black people, all this kind of stuff. I changed the whole entire narrative. So
if you remember, I'm privy to that, because there was a time that you know, I was doing some work at a drama school in East London, Peacock, and you were, I can't remember what school it was, in Leytonstone where you were working. Is it Leytonstone? Or was it Barking?
No, it depends which one, because I've done.
I think it might have been Barking.
Okay.
Somewhere in Barking.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, because at the time I wasn't familiar with the areas because I just more or less moved here, and it was I don't know if it was Black History Month, but there was definitely something that you had to do within the school or whatever, and you definitely brought an African feel to it. And what you did, you contacted us at this performing arts school, and you told us to come down and do a performance and so forth and whatnot. But you could definitely feel that, okay, this was you knew it was part of the curriculum, but what you did with it, you made it so that it was educational. Do you know what I mean? So that the African children there, the black children there could actually learn from that. And even those parents that came and people that participated, they were going to learn something as well. So I can actually hold up my hand and say that I was literally privy to that. And for me, it was an eye opener. And I just want to add to that as well, where you say that you were lucky. I'd say you're definitely blessed to have the parents that you had. Do you know what I mean? To be brought up in that environment where you were able to understand about your African heritage and, you know, being a Pan-Africanist and all of that. Now, for myself, no, Jamaican parents, and very proud of being Jamaican, to the point of, in a sense, that ignorant thing where, which part? We're not African, we're Jamaican. Do you know what I mean? Very strong, very proud, and would never say they were African. So for me, when I had some understanding as I got older and I started to learn about my African heritage, the point that I'm making is, like you said, you became a teacher, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and a senior, you went up and all of that. Well, what I decided to do, and I made a commitment to myself, is that when I have my child, I'm going to learn with her. I'm going to learn with her, and I'm going to let her know she's an African princess. You know, even if, like I said the other day, even if you don't know much, do your research, start by knowing little, and whatever you know, impart it. And that's what I did with my daughter. Do you know what I mean? So one of the things that me and my daughter would always say, what she heard me say, would be when people said, "Are you African?" And I would say, "No." They said, "Where you from? Where you from?" And I'd be like, "I'm African." "No, but what you mixed with? What you mixed with?" I said, "I'm not mixed. Like, what are you mixed with? I know you're mixed with some. You're Coolie or you're whatever." "No, my parents are both black." Yeah. So, "But where are you from?" I said, I'm African." "No, but where are your parents from?" I said, "Okay."
You can look straight in your face and see you're African. No one will think you're...
Thank you. So what I would always say is, like, I'm African, but by default, my parents were born in Jamaica.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying? By default, my parents were born in Jamaica. Mm-hmm. However, I'm African, my parents are African. And that's what we would say. Mm-hmm. And my daughter still says that today. Do you know what I mean? No. So I'm just saying we have to, as African people, we have to take responsibility and accountability for educating and imparting whatever knowledge, whatever little knowledge we have, onto our children. And it does start from us. You went one step further and you became a teacher, and which, you know, I commend you for that, Kim. But yeah, we have to take that responsibility. And I do, me personally, I do feel that we should move towards calling ourselves African. And like you said, be proud of it. It is really something to be proud of. It really is.
And for me, and it does start with self, and it also it's knowing what Africa was before slavery. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, thank you. But yeah, 100%.
The jury still out for me. When I went hard in not calling myself African and calling myself black. See, because I interchange it depending on
Why do you interchange it?
I'm going to tell you, because I use black because black's used in such a derogatory way. Everything black is no good. You understand me?
Right.
That I black, everything black, and I only use everything black to me is positive. So if someone say you're trying to blackmail somebody, I would say you're trying to whitemail somebody. You understand? Because everything black to me is positive. So it depends on who I'm speaking to. I do interchange it, and I use black a lot because of the whole dynamics. Even with the China thing, if I say African, people still think it's just African people in the motherland that's been treated like China. Yeah. So I mean, people might say to me, Black Brother Mandingo, it doesn't matter. I don't compromise when it comes to that. But I do compromise when it comes to that, for the simple reason I want to make people understand that you're not removed from this thing. So however I can reach you with that, that's better for me. Because if I say just African people, or all African people, even
I understand.
Educate them, they can't identify with it. They still think they're exempt. Do you understand?
Yeah.
But as for myself, I refer to myself as an African. Very proud to be African. There's no place. I've been to nearly every Caribbean island that and my children have, that we could ever think of. We've been to many parts of Europe, many different parts of America, and only when they came to Africa, like Gambia, my girls haven't been, my boys have, and it's his girlfriend, everybody that I've taken to Africa, that out of all the places they've always said that that's their favorite place they've ever been. Now you imagine, you know what, people, because they just couldn't, they were all right, they knew it was going to be great, but they're like, it's better than being in Atlanta or being in Jamaica or being in Barbados, they love it, the whole vibration. When you actually, I can't explain it unless you go back home. And
but you know what? I think I can explain it.